Well, it's 7:32 on my clock. We should begin. Let's start with a word of prayer, if you'd join me. Lord, we thank you for your hand on us tonight, that you are sovereign and preeminent, and we can't always see the work ahead of time, but you know all things. Lord, you've called us to this ministry to raise up godly young men through trail life. We pray you would equip us, strengthen us, and cover us with your grace. We commit our time tonight to you. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, welcome to the people that are here. I haven't met you all in person. I'm Jim Evans, the point man for eastern half of New York and Connecticut. And I'm delighted you're here. We wanted to put on a seminar like this to help some of the newer troops, and also as a refresher, maybe tune up the game a little bit for troops that have been doing this for a while, particularly at the Woodland Trails level. There's a lot to learn, and if you're just beginning, sometimes it is overwhelming to figure out, what does the program look like? What should we do in a meeting every night? How often should we meet? And where do I find all those documents they're talking about? I don't know how to invite members. Does that sound familiar? That was our goal, to address those things in a webinar that everybody could listen to, and also have a chance for you to ask questions. And so in the beginning, I'd like to go through some of the TroopTrack and administrative functions that might be helpful to you. But shortly then I'll turn it over to Chad Bircher, who's been running the Woodland Trails program for Troop 408 in Albany, Latham, for several years and doing it well. So I turn to an expert for help. He'll present important aspects of the Woodland Trails program. Certainly he's not going to go through everything that you could want to know, but he'll give you a good beginning, a guide, outlines, and some of the materials you'll find most helpful. So when you log into TroopTrack, this is probably the screen you will see. Announcements and things that the national office would like you to see, but this is a powerful tool for your use. There are many functions. One of the most common things you'll need to do may be to go up to this badge here, communicate, and click it. Many of the functions will depend on the rights that you have, but most of the troop committee and many of the leaders will be able to use this button to communicate, create mailing lists, make announcements, read announcements, come up with checklists, sign-up sheets. One of the more common things is to look at this magic mailing lists. TroopTrack has prepared that in advance. You don't need to put a lot together, but let's click it and see what shows up. On the left side, you can see that if you want to send an email to everybody, you could click here, and 45, every member of the troop, parents, children, everybody would get it. Or you could pick leaders, and it would send an email just to the leaders, or just to the scouts, or just to the adults. And scouts is a leftover in TroopTrack instead of trailmen. Or just to parents, or just to the Hawks. You get the idea. We can customize mailing lists, but TroopTrack has already customized quite a number. If we want to send out a message to remind people to bring their books to the meeting, or that we're gathering at 9 o'clock for the camp out on Saturday, whatever your communication issue is, can easily be done through TroopTrack. A second function that is critical probably would be under Manage. So in TroopTrack, I haven't gone anywhere. I'm right at my opening screen, and I click the button Manage, and I want to sign up a new leader. I want to sign up a new boy. And so I'll go to Members, add a member. Pretty self-explanatory if you know it's there to look for. So Manage, Members, add a member. And when I click that, I've got three choices. register later via email, so I could send that to a parent who would sign up their son at their convenience. Or register now. The boy's right in front of me, his parents are right in front of me, I'd like to sign him up. Or register an adult leader. Add a new leader is something that gets tricky, but it's done at the troop level. So many troops have asked their potential leaders to log into the national website and click that they are interested in trail life, would we please contact them. Once they are already willing to be a trail life leader in your troop, the national website can no longer help them. They have to be added in this way by the troop level, the committee or the administrator for your troop. So to add a new leader, it's right there. We did manage, we did members, add a member, and register an adult comes up. I'm not going to click that or I'd confuse myself in the system, but that's how you would add a new leader. We'll also use this opening screen for advancements to look at what the options are, the instructions, the overview, the individual records, how to purchase completed awards. It's all here. Print an agenda by patrol, by trailman. It's all in this advance. One thing I didn't touch on is this plan button. This is really a blank screen, a blank template for you to use in your troop planning if that's your style of planning. It is really helpful because it can be shared by every registered adult or every committee member in your troop. Participation, attendance report, your year's calendar at a glance, meeting schedules, plan an event. All of these things are available through TroopTrack instead of your paper calendar or whatever planning system you use now. Can be done through TroopTrack to give you a common way everybody can see it. And the last icon I haven't clicked yet is share. It's fairly simple. It leaves you a place and a way that you can share your troop documents, share photo albums. And there's one here I want to point out. There's multiple ways to get to the same location. But under share, we have this national resources. And probably 95% of the questions that troops have asked me in the past year, the answer is it's in national resources. I don't answer it that way, but if you want to know the in-depth look at everything trail life, it's in this national resources. So home screen, share, national resources, and we get an enormous list of documents. You see two tabs. Troop documents is whatever your troop has decided to share, or tables you put together, or spreadsheets, or whatever you've uploaded. And then Trail Life USA documents, the other tab, is page after page after page of documents that you can use. Some of these are going to be essential for your day-to-day use. Others are just things that I would encourage you to periodically read through this list. In fact, I've put together a table of contents. It's this same format. The only difference is I've cut out a lot of the fluff and unnecessary columns that tell you it's a PDF document in order to save space. But here is the list of all the documents and American Heritage Girls Memorandum, addressing sin in member boys. Do you think that's one that you ought to read? I think it's invaluable. So we go over here and click download. What does that look like? And here we go. Here is a document that Trail Life has put together to guide you in how to approach correcting sin in youth members. good things, bad things, what to look out for, how to lovingly guide them for their benefit. It's all there. So it comes up. We have to deal with it. TroopTrack or Trail Life has already created guidance for that. What I want to show you, all of these are background documents, miscellaneous documents. On and on we go. The role of the troop master, role of the treasurer. These are golden. I'd love you to spend time with every one of them. But after the miscellaneous documents, oh, by the way, where do you sew patches on? Are they under this seam or above that pocket flap? How about uniform insignia guide download? That would be handy. Then we get to health and safety section. Adult member medical form. Can Fox trailmen go on overnight campouts? Well, let's look at the long discussion they prepared on some thoughts that you should go through before you just make that decision. Immunization request, incident reports, how to get an insurance policy. It's all in this health and safety section. Guidance and assistance on fundraising, promotion materials, and I'm not trying to bore you, we're getting to the important stuff. It's almost here. Bingo! The Woodland Trails program. If you're running Woodland Trails, you should be in this section regularly. We have lesson plans for the Heritage branch, for the Hobbies branch, for the Life Skills branch. We have the Leaders Guide. We have an archived copy of some previous version of the program. We have faith activities for Woodland Trails. All of those materials, where do I find them? There's one answer. Look in TroopTrack. Look in National Resources, and they're all listed there, available for your download. There are some of these that are printed, available through the TroopTrack store as a printed guide or manual or bound book, and those are handy ways to do it. If you prefer to download it, you can here as well. Then for adventurers, we have a similar list of documents. Navigators, similar documents. Membership, insurance, and ranks and achievements. All of these are on TroopTrack. It's a wealth. Bylaws, registration. Let's pause there again. Group registration. Here's a document that I wish I had sent out to the 2 Connecticut troops. Instead, I gave them detailed directions, but I should have just given them a link to this document if I'd been a little more on the ball. How do you register adult and youth members? How do you do that? It's a little confusing and people are getting lost in the process. Well, you start with TroopTrack, National Resources, and click download right here on instructions. If you've got a group of parents together, you'd like to register them all at the same time on a initial meeting night, that's a great idea. Here's how you do that. Download. So all of these are available. That is what I really wanted to be able to show you tonight. Let me turn my screen off, and Chad is back on. Good. Before we present Chad, can I just leave a minute to ask, are there any questions? Just turn on your microphone and let me know if there's anything in there that I've said that sparked a question.
Nothing in the chat window, Jim.
Okay, very good. Well, with delight, then I present Chad Bircher, Woodland Trails. Thank you very much.
Now, I am unapologetically taking this from the Trail Ready Learner Conference that we had back in April. Some of these have been modified slightly, but this is material that if you came out a few months ago, you've seen before. Now, what we're going to be going over today is understanding what Woodlands, the structure, what the advancement is, what the badges are that you are and how you make it through, and then a little bit of the planning. And I'm going to go over how I do my documents just because I have found that for me, it's a little bit easier to keep up with paper documents just the way that I work. I've tutored a lot of kids before, and one of the things that I would tell them is that you always need to figure out what works for you and do that. Anyone can come up with a plan that would work great for your troop if they did it. What you need is to make sure that you have something that you can do. All right. First thing is the book. I always keep a copy of my book with me. I'm the troop master, so I also have the Trailman's Handbook. So if you're a troop master, you should have a copy of each of these. Inside of here is a lot of the copies of what you also see in the web resources. So you'll open it up and there will be different pages that go over who your contacts are, what the requirements are, a lot of the troop level overview, and then it'll go into what you're looking for each of your branches. So I would encourage you to spend a lot of time reading through that, especially because that's where a lot of your parents are going to go. If they have questions, they're going to want to look at the book, and if you know it really well, you can say, oh, it's right here in the book. Also, there's a series of stories that are really aimed at the Woodlands to read so that they can learn to love their books as well. These are stories that you can also go over with your Woodlands during meetings and talk about the lessons that they've learned in each of them. But it is something that adds a lot of fun to the program. All right. As we're going through this, you should always keep in mind that the point of Woodlands is not the badges. One of the nice things about the Woodlands program is there are so many different things that they can earn that you can present these to them month in and month out. However, that's not the point. The point is to give the boys a place where they can grow in character and responsibility with other boys who are also trying to grow the same way. Now, one of the questions that you get more often than anything else are, what about awards? What about badges? So this follows pretty easily. Can you see my mouse on the screen? I hope so. All right.
Yes.
What we have laid out here is your joining patch. So there are a few requirements after you join before you get this patch, but it should take about 2 or 3 weeks at most. For each of the branches, there's a set number of core steps, elective steps, and a hit the trail that is required before you earn the branch. Each of these different colors, so there are 7 colors here, stands for a different branch of your award. So you can earn 7 different branches, and you get very nice pins that go onto this patch. And once you have all 7 branches onto that patch, you earn your forest award. Now, in this example, they've switched from a fox over here to a hawk in the middle. But the way it actually works is that once a fox has earned all 7 of their branches, they earn the Fox Forest Award. And then once you have earned that, you can put a star in. And again, there's a number of core steps, electives, and a hit the trail that's required for each of these stars. And so if you're a fox or a hawk, the most awards you can earn in this type of achievement is 7 stars on your forest patch. As a mountain lion, there's an additional Timberline Award that has several steps that are added on top of it, including a personal growth, a faith element, and a couple other things. Again, they're in the book, they're in the resources, but as you have mountain lions that begin to come close to wrapping up this patch, you should talk with them about earning the timberline. As a separate achievement, you can earn the Worthy Life Award. This one is centered around spiritual growth. We can go over a couple of those documents, a couple of the pertinent documents and what it looks like to earn that. The interesting thing about the Worthy Life, it is the only patch that gets to be, that you can earn things on both as a woodland and as a navigator and an adventurer. As a woodland, there are 3 crosses down here, and you can earn a pin as a fox, as a hawk, and as a mountain lion. And then as you complete the steps as a navigator, an adventurer, they go on as well. Before we go on, I want to pause and ask if there are any questions.
None in the chat window.
All right. So the Join-In Award. Again, it's pretty easy. It's the Trailman Oath. If you guys don't know it yet, that's okay. One of the things that we did was we printed it out on a large piece of paper and put it on the wall where the boys meet. When we do our call to order, there's one boy who turns around and faces everyone else. And for a long time, right behind him on the wall was the oath. It made it really easy for the boys to learn it. The sign, the salute, your handshake, and folding the American flag. We are a little loose on that requirement, especially for the foxes, because they can't really, they don't have the dexterity. So what we do is we have them observe how to fold a flag, and then they'll learn as they get older how to do it themselves. These are the different branches: heritage, hobbies, life skills, sports and fitness, outdoor, science and tech, and values. Now the values branch, in a couple places it's called godly values. That's a carryover from the previous program. So typically these are in alphabetical order, and sometimes values ends up in the wrong spot. All right. The Hit the Trail activity. These are any different activities that your troop is going to plan. They can be tied in with the navigators and adventurers or not. Most of ours are separate, and we run the Woodlands separate from the navigators and adventurers, but we have about 12 older boys, about 12 younger boys, so it works pretty well to break up into 2 groups. There are a lot of different things you can do for this. They can be visiting museums. There's a battleship here, not a battleship, a destroyer escort here in Albany that you can go to. Let's see here, some of the other ones. We have one plan that I'm trying to plan where we'll get to go to a bakery, and the boys will get to see how to actually make bread in a bakery. Another one we've done is visited a fire department. We watched how ice cream is made. We've participated in a couple cleanup events at a nearby park, and there's just all sorts of stuff you can do for Hit the Trail. There are a lot of examples in the supporting documents, but you can really use your imagination and ask your boys what sorts of things they would like to do. Because as long as you can get them to somewhere, you can tend to find one of those 7 branches that it fits into. Because if you think about it, this covers most aspects of life. There are very few things that you can go do with a group of 8, 9, and 10-year-olds that aren't going to fall into one of these 7 categories. And the last thing is the family home activities. All of the steps are supposed to be done in the troop. So these are not things that the boys can go off and do by themselves, which is different from navigators and adventurers, where a lot of their work is done either at home or on their own or in a separate group or different things like that. These are really participation type branches. If you show up and participate, then you have completed that step. Now, not every boy will be able to make it to every meeting. So there are additionally activities that the boys can do at home with their family, and 2 of those will make up for either a misstep or a hit the trail. Now, this is the part that my families always find confusing. For each branch, you have a combination of core, elective, and hit the trail. You can make up one thing for that branch. So you cannot make up a core and an elective and a hit the trail. You can only make up one thing. However, you can make up one thing for each branch. So you can actually make up 7 different things as long as they're in different branches. On top of that, you can also make up one thing for each Sylvan star. So that means a hawk, for example, could have up to 14 different family home activities that he has done, but they can't be stacked up in one area. So one of the reasons this matters is you can't have a boy that is on a baseball team and make up all of his sports and fitness by his participation in baseball. It would just be one of those things. Are there any questions at this point? All right. The Timberline Award, it includes reaching out to boys outside of your troop. So inviting a friend to either a meeting or a hit the trail or something else involving with the troop. It requires the boys to set a goal and to work towards that goal and measure it with progress. So this is something that I think is really important, being able to set a goal that's measurable and seeing how you do at it. So one of the things they can't say is, I want to be nicer, because that's a really hard thing to measure. What they might say is, I want to improve my grade in my math class. Or they might say, I want to pray every day. And so they might start keeping a prayer journal and seeing if they can get to where they're praying more frequently. Another part of it is to go on an overnight trip with the troop. And again, all of that is in the book, and it is a great accomplishment. And I am looking forward to when we get to start handing some of those out to our mountain lions, because I think we might have a couple mountain lions that'll learn that over the next year. All right, the Worthy Life Award. At this point, I'm going to step out from the program we have here and show you a couple things on the web. The first one is the Worthy Life program for Woodlands Trail. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, obviously, because it's quite a few pages long, but it shows what you're looking for foxes, hawks, and mountain lions. This page right here is really just an overview for what you're looking at, with detailed guides on the next pages. So you have the Worthy Life program for foxes, and it actually walks you through exactly what you need to do for the fox to earn their Worthy Life Award. Now, some of these things include a camp prayer or a hit the trail prayer. So this is something that you should know well ahead of time, because if you have something like a participate in a camp prayer for your foxes, not for your foxes, for your hawks, let's see here, which I believe is one of the requirements. You need to make sure that they are making it onto those camping trips. All right. Separately, there are other ways to earn your Worthy Life Award. I showed you what was in there for the Foxes. There are 3 other groups that are recognized by the Trail Life USA towards this award. One is the Ministry of Churches of Christ in Scouting, which has a set of 5 different awards that can be earned. Now, these do not match up exactly with the ages of the Trail Life program. So what that also means is when you look, oh, it's not on this one. All right. When you look at the reference guide, and this should be popping up, there is the K to First, which has a Worthy Life direction. And there are the religious recommendations. I was pointing at the Ministry of Churches of Christ in Scouting. Loving Servant comes across both Fox and Hawk. So what you would want to do is choose an age at which you would go over Loving Servant. And then the other one, you would really focus on the Trail Life material. The other 2 are the Eastern Orthodox, which have their own requirements as well, and the Catholic. So between those 3 programs, you should be able to find something that you want, that you would be happy with, if you don't want to necessarily just follow through the Trail Life material. All right. Any questions we have right now about the Worthy Life program? Okay, tracking advancements. This is another area where I would highly encourage you to make sure the boys have their books. Because in the book, there are pages for tracking your advancement. And in here, you'll be able to have the boys record each of the signatures so they can see exactly where they stand towards each branch. That's really important for the boys to have so that they can put their hands on it. I have found that when I have tracked all of the advancements and I've kept my copy, they have no clue what any of it means, even if I bring a printout every week. It is always a surprise to them to see where they stand just from one week to the next. So being able to put in their hands exactly what their advancement is very useful. Let's see here. Something else that I wanted to show you guys is I have a slightly different way of tracking their achievements. So what I have is a spreadsheet that I can keep up with. Right here, I don't have typed in all of our plans for the next year because I just updated this to 2018. When you look at our 2017, it let me put in when I wanted to hit each of these things over the next year. And then what it lets you do is, as one of the boys finishes out their requirements, I have it automatically calculating whether they finished their branch or their star or anything else. And this just lets me keep really good track of, it makes it really easy for me to go in, hit all of these updates pretty quickly at the end of each session and just lays it out in a way that I can follow a little bit better. The other thing I'm building out on this is a similar page for navigators and adventurers, just so that we can keep up with all of those a little bit easier. But this is going to be my secondary approach. One of the things that my navigators have gotten really excited about is that I am taking a teacher's handbook, not a teacher's handbook, a teacher's grade book, and I am going to copy over all of the material that I just showed you on the spreadsheet into a book like this, so that you can so that each of the boys can see exactly where they stand. One of the reasons the navigators and adventurers like that is because they keep track of all of their achievements in their handbooks. That's one of their requirements, is to be able to keep up with those. And for me to be able to say, I have a physical copy right here that can match your copy, and from time to time we're going to sit down and make sure they line up. What it shows them is that it matters to me how they're doing in their advancement. So there's nothing wrong with the digital approaches or using TroopTrack or anything else. You have to make sure that you're using a system that works for you. And if you find something that the boys in your troop can really get a hold of and grab onto, that makes it all the much better. Any questions at this point?
Chad, I've got one. Looks like there's some wall charts there where boys can see where they are. Do you use those in the center there?
I do not use the ones in the center. There is a reason for that, and I'm not opposed to them. When I was looking at these, and maybe I need to go through the national level documents a little bit better. The ones both on the wall chart and the individual trail map for the foxes, mountain lions, and hawks, what they have is for both the branch and the Sylvan Star, they say Core 1, Core 2, Elective 1, Elective 2, which makes sense because you can't lay out which core and which elective you're going to do on which half. However, when you look at these, let me grab an example. So you look at not life skills. We'll do the science and technology. So science and technology has 4 different core steps. You have to do 2 core steps for your branch and 2 core steps for your Sylvan Star. The way I have interpreted that is the 2 steps you do for the star are supposed to be the 2 steps that you haven't done for your branch. When I was keeping track of how many core steps the boys have done as a number, I found that I lost track of which ones they had done. And so I've set it up a little bit differently for my own personal record keeping, so that I can make sure that I'm not giving a boy credit for 4 different core steps if he's only done the same one 4 times. So those wall charts, I think, would be very great as a visual for the boys, but I would not use them as your primary tracking system for that reason. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. I do like the ones over on the left that a boy could paste in his own bedroom and go through each of the 3 patrols and kind of map out where he goes. Have you used those?
Those are the exact same as in the book. Now, our troop, was able to provide books to all of the boys. So we did not also grab out those trail maps.
Okay.
But no, I think those maps would be, those would be good. One of the other things for them though is that I'm just thinking of my boys. They would sit down and start writing what they want to do when. And pretty quickly, it would not tell them what they have achieved. It would be kind of covered in their own markings. But those ones are very much up to each of the different troops on how they want to lay those out. But I really do like those. All right, planning the meetings. This is a spot where the books do not, they don't even come close to what's available in the online resources. So the book will have a synopsis of what can be done for each of the core steps and each of the electives. The online resources, and I have downloaded all of the materials. So if we want to look at the values, you can go to your lesson plans and pull one up and say, this week we have planned to do teamwork and cooperation. And that will run you through the entire meeting. And it will show you what it should look like for foxes, hawks, and mountain lions. And you can work through this entire thing without that much time being spent ahead of time. You can go through this, and instead of trying to figure out what to do, you're just planning your mind on how to do it. In addition to that, so you notice this one is values step 5, teamwork and cooperation. In the same zip file, they have a helps document. So we can go to values 5, teamwork and cooperation. This is a different document, and it really is for the person planning the meeting. It's really to look at several days ahead of time so that you can get your mind in the right spot for the meeting and make sure that you can, for me, I find that if I mull over these about 2 days ahead of time, I can do a lot better when I'm in front of the boys talking about each thing. Because if you're new to this, expect your boys to be all over the place every time you bring up a subject. You never know what it is they're going to bring up. So if you look at if our meetings are on Tuesday, if I read this on, say, Friday night, and then I glance at it Sunday, and then make sure that I have everything packed up Monday night, I'm just very well prepared by the time I walk in front of the boys on Tuesday. All right. Now, we've walked through some of the web resources, the leader guide, and the lesson plans. And I've walked through some of the faith building activities and the books that you can use with your Woodlands. This is another great spot for me to open it to questions. What do you guys have so far?
Ted, for somebody that's just starting, what do you think is the best way to figure out to keep straight all the awards and badges and silver stars and progress? Is there one source that you would recommend to them to help keep track of everything?
My number one recommendation, I am not a naturally organized person. And so I have struggled with that a bit. I am a very analytical person, but I don't naturally fall into keeping things organized. So the reason I set up the spreadsheet that I have right here is because that is one place where I can very quickly go, put in the attendance, and it also keeps track of exactly how the boys are doing towards each of their advancements. So I would suggest having something like this. However, it took me a long time to put that together in the way that I need. So I would truly recommend taking a book like this. Now, I don't know how well it's showing up, but what I'm going to be putting in as I finish this out is you'll be able to have each of your hawks by name. And then what we have right here is Christian heritage, flag etiquette, founding fathers, and so on. So this right here is everything that's required inside of the heritage branch. So as you go through this, you'll mark off when each boy is in there, and when they've done half of them, you'll know that they've earned their branch. When they've filled out that whole section, they will have earned their Sylvan Star. Given that I'm just switching over to this sort of a paper copy, I don't have it entirely written out, but I think that's going to be a great way to keep track of it. The biggest issue is that you would have to make sure that you have it with you and that you are just keeping up with which ones are being done which week. And if you're not there, to make sure that the ranger or the trail guide, whoever it is that's working with the boys, sends you a list of who was there and what did they do. One of the other things I would say about having a paper copy like this is that it forces you to be organized and to keep up with the things. Since I'm not naturally organized, having some of those things where I have my bag that I am always going to take to trail life with me, and it has inside of it my notebook, not my notebook, my achievement book, my trail guides, and my record book of what's going on during the meetings. I know that I'm going to have that with me every time I go see the boys. And having something that forces you to do the things that you need to do in order to stay organized or in order to make sure that everything's getting done, I would say is a good thing. One of the issues that I've had with a lot of the online resources is since they take so much of the work out of it, it's really easy for me to say, okay, I'll do that tomorrow. And if you say, I'll do that tomorrow, you'll say it again tomorrow. And then by the time the third day rolls around, you may have forgotten who was there or what exactly was done, or if any of the boys did not participate and you had warned them and you said you will not be getting credit, you may not remember whether you did that. So making sure that you have a system that works for you and something that forces you to do the things that you like to do least. That's a very long answer to your question.
Well, it's okay. I appreciate it. I just wonder if when they're first starting, they're just beginning, if this wouldn't be just a quick way to get going until they really develop what's their favorite style.
Yes.
To purchase that from the Trail Life store as a beginning.
Yeah, and if you look at it, that's what you're showing right there is almost the exact thing that I'm putting together. The only issue I had with it was the one thing that I mentioned, but it's really hard to do a wall chart that would, you're going to make a compromise somewhere on that wall chart, either in making it easy to figure out whether you've earned your stars or whether you're being able to keep track of which core or step that they did. So absolutely something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not trying to put in a plug for the store or anything. These are, you know.
Well, no, and like I said at the outset, and like I've said repeatedly through this, you have to find the thing that will work for you. And if you know that you are lacking organizational skills, don't do anything that gives you too many shortcuts. So don't make your job overly complicated, but also don't make it so that you put off till the next day. So again, the wall chart, one of the really nice things about that is that you can go over and check it off that night. You can go over and the ranger will initial right there that day, and it's done. All right, are there any other questions?
This is a little off topic, but I'm still curious. If you had, I'm thinking beginning troops, and you have limited funds, and there's 75 choices in the Trail Life store, which things do you think would be essential to a new troop to purchase, and which things could they put off a while? Are there a few things that they really ought to focus on getting?
One, uniforms. Now, what we've done with our Woodlands is their t-shirt is their uniform. And then we have taken the badge that they get. So we've taken their badge, and then the badge goes on a lanyard, and then they can wear it with their t-shirt. So that's one thing, but it gives the boys a sense of belonging. They get to get dressed up for the Trail Life meetings. So I would say that would definitely be one of them. We operated for a couple years without getting the boys' books. I think that was a mistake. If I could go back and change one thing about how we operated the first couple years, it would have been that we got the boys' books early on. Let's see here. Some of the things that you need the badges. You have to get the pins as they're advancing. You can make a lot of copies for the trail leaders. So all of these are downloadable, so that those aren't anything that you spend your money on. Let's see here. But yeah, those are the things that we've really needed: the books, the badges, and some sort of uniform.
How often do you meet? Do you meet every week, or is there, can you meet a couple times a month as opposed to weekly?
We meet weekly. Not every troop does. In my experience, when you have troops that meet every other week, or when you schedule it to be, if you don't meet weekly, people forget which week you're supposed to meet. So we'll cancel them for things like obviously snow. But if we expect everyone to be out of town, if 4th of July is falling on a Tuesday, if Halloween is falling on a Tuesday, Christmas and Christmas and New Year's this year, I believe both are on Tuesdays. So we're going to cancel those meetings. But effectively, other than that, we try to meet every week. We even try to meet every week in the summers. Now, what that means is there are a lot of weeks where we do not have very many boys. But if you have 4 or 5 boys there that night, what you can do is look at the boys that you have and say, here's what we're going to do, because we have 5 boys, 2 of you are missing this branch. We're going to go do that branch. Something else that I would suggest doing, and we just ran into this last week. Our ranger was planning on having the Woodlands do outdoor cooking, and then it rained. And it was not raining when we got there, but all of the area they would have been in was soaking wet and muddy, so they couldn't go out for outdoor cooking. One of the things we're building out is going through these and trying to find 2 or 3 in each of these branches that can be done inside, so that if all of a sudden surprised you can't do what you were planning on doing, you have in your cabinet something like 10, 15 different plans that can just be grabbed off the shelf and they're ready to go.
Chad, let me follow up on that question of Carl's, just to add a little more to it. If they did meet every other week, and several troops do you think it would be possible for them to get through each of the lessons, each of the materials, or would it be virtually impossible?
No, it is not. In order to earn your forest patch, there are 31 requirements that the boys have to make. Now, if you're doing a meeting every other week, that gives you 26 to start with. All right, you say, then we're also going to add in a hit the trail every month. So you can start with up to, that's 38. That means each of your boys can miss at most 7 per year in order to get everything. Now, that doesn't account yet for things like Christmas and New Year's both falling on a Tuesday. So you're going to miss one of those at least. There are going to be a few other holidays that you're going to miss as well. I don't think it's possible if you're going to meet every other week to get your boys through all of their requirements, especially if you want to add in a faith element. So if you're going to say, in addition to the branches, we do want to be able to do any of these, you have a certain number of weeks you're going to have to set aside to cover your faith elements. And by the time you've done all of that, it has to be more than 26 Tuesdays. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. How long would you recommend for a Woodland Trails meeting? Is it 45 minutes or 2 hours?
No, it is not 2 hours. Your foxes can't sit that long. Your mountain lions can hardly sit that long. There have been a lot of weeks where I'll look at the boys and they seem very energetic, and I will ask them, who wants to go run laps in the parking lot? And it's surprising how excited they get about the opportunity to go sprint back and forth up and down the parking lot. So I would not plan on any of the meetings being over an hour. What that has done is it's given us about 5 minutes for our call to order. It gives about 10 minutes for getting up and doing something. Gives us about 20 minutes for going over the lesson, and about 20 more minutes for doing some sort of activity associated with the lesson, and then we wrap up at the end. The boys are never bored, and I imagine if you try and do it for an hour and a half, you're going to have some issues with boys getting bored. One of the problems with an hour-long meeting, though, is that you will always have boys who are routinely late. So you have to choose whether it's going to be a 1 hour meeting and the boys don't get bored, or it's going to be an hour and a half and everyone will be able to be there for all of the material that you're supposed to cover. It's a choice you have to make.
Would you recommend the same length for navigators and adventurers?
Right now, we meet as a whole troop. So we have families that have boys in both navigators and in Woodlands. I'm thinking the adventurers are going to have a little bit of trouble doing all of the things that they're going to want to do, meeting for 1 hour. And it might be appropriate to have the navigators and adventurers to meet for a little bit longer. We've been able to have our navigators meet all of their requirements, meeting 1 hour a week and then not meeting all that much in the summer. However, that's been for boys who are very active, and the boys that are there every time they meet. So I think we may need to open up the times that they're able to earn a little bit more than we have as a troop. When I was in Boy Scouts, the troop meetings were an hour and a half, and that seems about the right amount of time for boys that are 14 to 18. They can manage that.
Chad, about lateness coming to the meetings, that seems to be a common thread. One thing I've seen successfully happen is some sort of pre-meeting activity that the boys can participate in as they arrive, and then getting the meeting started at an appointed time. That way they can kind of join in and maybe even let off a little bit of steam to be calmed down for the meeting. But I've seen that work.
Something else that I've done in other settings, and I think it's too late for us to try and change this as a troop right now. I have found that for some weird reason, if you set an oddball time to start your meetings, people pay more attention to it. So we start our meetings at 6:30. That's enough time for someone who gets off of work at 5 to get home, pick up their kids, maybe eat, and then get to the troop meeting. But it's not so late that after the meeting, they cannot get done what they need for the next day. But if instead of starting at 6:30, you started at 6:25, what that ends up doing is changing people's mindset. 6:30 is late. So that might be something that you try, is just setting off that time slightly so that it's not at a half hour. Any questions you guys have?
Well, very good, Chad. I'm so grateful that you would go through that with us. Would you do us one last thing and close us out in prayer?
Absolutely. Father God, thank you so much for this opportunity.